When I first learned of my son's diagnosis, I really beat myself up just wondering, how could I have missed that? Or why didn't I look into this deeper? However, along the way, I learned that no two people with autism are exactly the same. Not only that, I really just wanted to enjoy my son in present time and not hyper-focus on his differences. I am going to inform you of 5 early signs of autism. The signs that I am going to name are unique to my son. So if you notice individually or collectively that these signs apply to your child, then I would definitely suggest that you seek medical or professional help. It is really important not to self-diagnose. I am an autism mom, but I'm not a licensed doctor. Just jumping right into the first sign that I noticed when it came to my son was, since birth, he was hard to console. Usually, or typically, when you're a mom, you begin to learn your baby's cries, whether they're crying because they're hungry or they need a diaper change or they are sleepy or they're just irritated. However, when it came to me with my son, I could not distinguish his cries. Like, I didn't know whether or not he was crying because of, him just wanting to eat or being sleepy. His cry to me pretty much sound the exact same. It was really like screechy and loud, and no matter what I did, he would just still continue crying. So that really flared my anxiety. I am honestly, to this day, I still struggle with hearing babies cry. I get, flustered sometimes. What I would have to do sometimes is actually just stand up and walk around with him or take him for a car ride. Like, there had to be some type of motion involved for him to begin to calm down. He has grown out of that just a bit now that he's older. He still does have, like tantrums, and calming himself down sometimes can be a challenge. However, there still is that underlying just issue with self-soothing and things of that nature. Moving on to the second sign that I noticed about my son is he would play with odd objects. Typically, boys play with cars and dinosaurs, or if they are playing with dolls, they will pretend play, with the doll. They'll rock the doll, or they'll push the doll in the stroller, or they'll pretend to feed the doll or change its clothes and stuff. My son never did any of that. He would prefer to play with things usually that had a handle. For instance, like, he loved playing with like the kitchen utensils, a magnifying glass, a rat tail comb. What are some other, his toothbrush. So anything that had an extended handle. And of course, I didn't see that as a cause for concern. I just, for some reason, did not associate that with a specific disorder. And that may be because I never knew anyone within my family, my household, or my, friends that was diagnosed with autism. Now that I am aware that autism is a spectrum, I actually now remember that I do know someone that may have been diagnosed, but I believe his name was Zach. I went to high school with him. Zach was very intelligent, but I did realize that his way of communicating and the way that he connected with people was a bit different. But he was diagnosed with Asperger's. So I believe Asperger's is more on the milder end of autism. My son specifically was diagnosed with severe autism. So, yeah. The third sign that I noticed with my son, he would spin in circles a lot. Like, he literally would like get in the middle of the floor and he would just spin round and round and round and round, like, to the point where I would think like he would get dizzy. And, I just thought that he was just pretty much doing it for his own entertainment, which, I guess he could have been doing, but also when it became more frequent, to be quite honest, like, it became irritating. I did not understand why he was doing it. But they call this stimming. So this is an autistic person's way of pretty much coping with their environment or trying to relieve tension. Like if they're overstimulated or understimulated, they will try to find ways to kind of function or regulate in their body to where it's easier for them to be in control in their environment. I had no understanding or awareness of what was actually happening, you know. Once he was diagnosed and I saw it as one of the signs on the list, you know, I like sunk down in my heart because I just thought, like, you know, there were times that I found it funny, you know. So that was really hard for me to deal with at one point in time. And to this day, he does not spin. And if he does, it's like really, really rare. I cannot actually recall the last time that I noticed him spinning. Like I said, they also call it stimming. Another thing that, or sign number 4 that I realized was he would hand flap. And again, when children are developing, especially like when they're younger, around like, I would say between like 6 to 8 months, they are learning how to just move different body parts, and they're excited knowing that they have new skills, that they're mobile, and that they can actually control their own arms and legs and head, and they can roll over, and they can, you know, just do different things with their bodies. So I for sure did not see hand flapping as a sign of autism. You know, they usually, you know, just, you know, they hit on different things, they're touching different things, they're just curious. So I don't know how to go into much detail specifically about the hand flapping because, again, it's a normal part of development for a child to. So that's one that if you do notice that with your child, like I said, please don't be alarmed, because I for sure still cannot. I guess where it becomes like a sign of autism is when it's very repetitive, you know. So I guess if they are doing it so frequent that it becomes an issue, you know, where they're just doing it nonstop all day for hours on end, you know. So I guess the repetition in the hand flapping would be why they correlated with autism. I think we are on number 5. And this one was also one where I kind of raised the eyebrow. With my son, he preferred to watch movies as opposed to shorter shows. He had a couple of movies that he preferred to watch, and he would watch those same movies all day if I allowed him to. He liked things like Moana and Trolls, and Stuart Little was a big one that he really enjoyed. Once he got older, he got into the Minions and the Incredibles. He enjoyed Boss Baby, and what was another one? For the most part, those were the few that he would watch over and over and over again. He would literally watch it all the way through to the credits. If I tried to get him to watch something new, like a short show, Bubble Guppies, or just certain nursery rhymes, like, he would literally throw a tantrum. And then this phase of my life, when I first had my son, I was a full-time employee. I was in school, I was in a relationship. I also have an older child, so I really had a lot of things going on, and I didn't realize at the time how detrimental him just sitting in front of the TV or his cognitive development. So again, that is something that I really beat myself up about. And just as a bonus sign, I don't know if I'm actually going to title this 5 signs or 6 signs. Typically people do their videos in increments of 5. I guess I will use this next sign as a bonus sign, which I noticed for my son was he did not point or gesture. For instance, you know, when kids are small, they like to bring you things that they're interested in, or point to things that they notice out in public or at the park or at a store. You know, they'll point to the things that they want, or their gesture to say that, you know, they have interest in certain things. Like my son, he did not point at anything. And he did briefly wave bye-bye, but it did not last long at all. And we worked with him for a long period of time trying to get him to wave bye-bye. And to this day, my son still does not wave bye-bye. We are still working on it because I have hope and faith that he will. And then also, he, in true Libra fashion, he just does things when he feels like it. So yeah, so to this day, we are still working on gestures with my son. Now, he does definitely point more. He will tell me the things that he wants by pointing, but he still is not doing the usual hi and bye and things of that nature. So those are 5 signs and a bonus that I noticed before my son was actually diagnosed with autism. And again, he's now 5 years old, and we are still working with him. I am actually in the process of getting him into music therapy and ABA, which I actually denied the help earlier on just because I had my own perception, and I also was just I guess in denial, just thinking that eventually things would work themselves out. You know, I wanted to believe that, you know, me as his mom, that I would be able to fix. But realistically and honestly speaking, it is a journey. It takes a village to raise a child. So if you are in the process of either receiving a diagnosis for your child, or you've already received the diagnosis and you are just anxious or fearful or in denial about needing additional help, then I mean, do whatever works for you. However, it is going to take a lot of hands-on support. It's going to take a lot of just researching and things to allow your child that opportunity to excel and to grow in their environment. Because just honestly, as a human, it's already a challenge to maneuver in this world. But when there's a diagnosis or a disorder, then it's more of a challenge. So if you can receive the help, definitely accept it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below any suggestions or recommendations if you are further along in your journey, or if this video was helpful in any way to you. If you can pass this information along to anyone, please do so. Thank you so much for just being here. I love you all. I wish you all the best. What makes you different is what makes you beautiful.